Hi, my name is Brandon, and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. One of the worst things that can happen when someone is feeling depressed, when someone is suffering in life from anything, is to feel that they deserve what they're feeling. Because when you feel like you deserve pain in life, that makes it very hard to do anything to help yourself get out of that painful situation. And then the pain gets compounded and it starts a cycle that many of us in recovery experienced in our active addiction. We experienced this cycle of pain where we would get in painful situations, we would soothe those situations with alcohol and drugs, we would feel sorry for ourselves, we would feel like we deserved what we got, and it would just make the situation worse and worse and worse. And so when I was reading today in When Bad Things Happen to Good People by Harold S. Kushner, he really sums this up well in the following paragraph. He says, "One of the worst things that happens to a person who has been hurt by life is that he tends to compound the damage by hurting himself a second time. Not only is he the victim of rejection, bereavement, injury, or bad luck, he often feels the need to see himself as a bad person who had this coming to him, and because of that drives away people who try to come close to him and help him. Too often in our pain and confusion, we instinctively do the wrong thing. We don't feel we deserve to be helped, so we let guilt, anger, jealousy, and self-imposed loneliness make a bad situation even worse." Let's break this down. So, looking at the first sentence, one of the worst things that happens to a person who has been hurt by life is that he tends to compound the damage by hurting himself a second time. So, addiction and substance use offers a great example of this. When I was hurt by life, or when I was hurting in life, let's put it that way. I don't want to blame anything on life. When I was hurting in life, I would hurt myself a second time by turning to booze and drugs to chase away those emotions and to numb those feelings. So it's easy for me to see how I hurt myself a second, third, fourth time, and even getting away from the psychological part of it. When I would wake up hungover, I would try to relieve the hurt from that hangover by hurting myself a second time and drinking more, So clearly, when we're hurting, a lot of times our instinct is to do something that hurts us more, even though we know it's probably not going to help at all. He goes on to say, not only is he the victim of rejection, bereavement, injury, or bad luck, he often feels the need to see himself as a bad person who had this coming to him, and because of that drives away people who try to come close to him and help him. So this is also classic behavior in active addiction. I would feel like people in my life didn't like me. I might feel sad or stressed out. That was the big one for me. That was a big trigger for me, was getting stressed about life. And looking back, I can see that a majority of that stress was self-created. I created that stress. And while I was often in stressful situations, the emotional impact of it was compounded by the fact that I would push away people who were trying to help me, like he says here. I can't tell you how many times I was stressed at work and had people come to me and say, "Can I do something to help you?" And I would turn them away, feeling like I deserved to feel that stress because I couldn't figure something out, or because I had too much on my plate and needed to get it all done. And it wasn't until I got into recovery at work and learned, you know what, I need to rely on the people who are around me. I need to ask them for help, that I finally started to stopped feeling as much of that stress on a consistent basis. And don't get me wrong, stress is good sometimes, especially in a working situation. But once I learned how to uh, accept help and ask for help, then all of a sudden I started to be able to accomplish more. I started to be able to do more with the resources that I had, and it really got me out of this cycle that I was getting in, where I would get super stressed out and then feel depressed about being stressed, and then feel like I was a failure, and then it would just spiral out of control. And by asking and accepting for help rather than pushing people away, I was able to break that cycle. So he goes on to say, too often in our pain and confusion, we instinctively do the wrong thing. We don't feel we deserve to be helped, so we let guilt, anger, jealousy, and self imposed loneliness make a bad situation even worse. So those are the feelings that I felt the most when I felt like I was in a bad position in life, when I felt like I was hurt by life. Um, I would feel guilty first and foremost. A lot of guilt because I had done the wrong thing. A lot of times I had done the wrong thing as a response to the pain I was feeling. Like he mentions earlier, when we feel pain, a lot of times we do the wrong thing to try to relieve that pain. So I had a lot of guilt in my life. I had a lot of anger in my life because I did feel like I deserved what I was getting. And so I was angry with myself, but I also couldn't help but being angry with the people around me. Especially when I got to points where I felt like they should know how I was feeling and know what I needed, and they weren't giving it to me. I would get angry with them. Instead, in my recovery, I've learned that I have to tell people what I need. I have to tell people how I'm feeling. That not everybody is super intuitive and can read minds. I have to be a communicator to other people, and that's where I can keep that anger at bay, is when I actually talk to people about those things. Jealousy or envy was a big part. I would look at other people and think, man, that person has it all together. What's wrong with me? And as a result of all of these emotions, I pushed everybody away. And that's the self imposed loneliness he's talking about. And that's the isolation that we often see us ourselves experiencing in our active addiction. Is we say, I don't want anything to do with anybody else. I'll take care of this on my own. I'll do whatever I need to do to take care of this. And we just push everybody away. And as a result, it makes a bad situation even worse. It gets worse and worse and worse. And things start to spiral out of control because everything he's described in this paragraph feeds off of each other. And you can, as you read this paragraph, as you listen to this paragraph, you can feel, if you've been in this situation, you can feel that spiral getting tighter and tighter as things get closer to going down the drain. So this paragraph was really impactful to me because it mirrored to me the pattern that I fell into in my addiction, and the pattern that I have to make sure I don't fall into in my recovery. Because even though I'm completely sober and not drinking or using drugs, I still have the opportunity in my life to fall into this emotional pattern. So it might not be that I turn to alcohol and drugs as a way to relieve these feelings, but I could certainly fall into this pattern. Emotionally, I could fall into this pattern in other ways, and I have to be careful of that. And that's why I have to really make sure that I'm reaching out to people for help, accepting their help, and doing all of the things that I've learned to do in my recovery program to avoid the feelings of guilt, anger, and jealousy that make me want to isolate against the world and make me feel like I deserve what I'm getting. That's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow with more. Have a good one.